We cannot solve our problems with the same level of thinking that created them. Albert Einstein. Good afternoon, Dr. Druell, Dr. Schlanger, Mrs. Lyons, faculty, staff, and my fellow students. Life is like a video game. Different levels represent different chapters of your life, and on each of these levels, you encounter different obstacles that you must overcome to level up. Similar to failure, these challenges can take trial and error to defeat, just as it may take multiple attempts to beat a level in your favorite video game. After beating the level and solving the problem, you might encounter other issues similar to the ones you have already faced. This means that you can use lessons from your past to gain an advantage in your future. Obstacles test your strength and determination, so you have to be creative and never stop pushing when trying to reach a solution. Sometimes, problems can be solved by simply asking for help and getting advice from an outside source. You might be surprised to hear that I learned this lesson while playing video games. In this game, known as Rocket League, I was stuck in a ring, and no matter how hard I tried, I could not get past this obstacle. It got to the point where I considered quitting Rocket League because I simply did not know what to do. My final attempt was taking a step back from the game and actually determining the exact area where my skills needed to improve. I needed better car control. After I discovered my issue, I watched YouTube guides and tutorials on how to train car control and be more comfortable with your movement. After lots of practice and training, I eventually made it to the next ring. After finally completing my goal and making it to the next ring, I realized the way to do so was by using the tools I picked up along the way. Later on, I noticed that the same strategy can be applied to this game we call life. Now we will be entering the portal into my life. I will now guide you through the journeys and challenges that I've endured to reach where I am today. When I was leveling up from 6th to 7th grade, I faced a huge obstacle. I had to switch settings. My avatar would remain the same, but the scenarios would be completely different. The bosses of the level, known as tests and quizzes, got harder. I also now had to beat the 6 final bosses: the English, math, science, history, and Latin and Spanish finals. The beginning of the level was fine. However, once I got farther into the level, I became overwhelmed by the sheer amount of bosses that came my way, and I did not know if I would be able to handle them. I just could not find the balance between studying the strategies of how to beat these bosses and completing other side quests in my life. After endless effort and trying my hardest to find balance, I considered giving up and accepting defeat. Then I remembered the strategies I learned from playing Rocket League. I decided to test them, as it was my last hope. So I stepped back for a second and analyzed what I was doing wrong. I was spending countless hours every day studying how to beat the bosses and barely had enough time to complete my other priorities. The idea of how to solve this dilemma then shot into my brain. I should stop spending so much time on the bosses. Most of the time, I spent so long studying for the bosses when the actual boss fights ended up being easier than I expected. I decided to try it out, to spend less time on bosses and more on side quests, and it worked. I finally found balance, and for the first time at this level, I did not feel overwhelmed or stressed. This made me realize that the solutions to my problems were often right in front of me, and that I just had to step back and look at them from a different perspective. In other cases, your problems might not need a new perspective. They might need the powers of patience and dedication. Looking back at the lower levels, I used these powers to make it past a very difficult one. Let's go back to level 2, 2nd grade. On this level, I had to play with a disadvantage. Part of my armor was gone, and I would not be able to use my right arm for the next month and a half. Even though it was my non-dominant hand, it would be difficult to beat bosses and complete side quests without it. Because I had not encountered such a challenge before, I did not know that I would have to change up my strategy. I tried to beat my bosses and complete my side quests as I usually would, but this did not work. I got furious whenever I was defeated by a boss, and frustrated whenever I could not complete a side quest. After trying over and over, I came to the conclusion that I would need a change up in my strategy. Otherwise, I would keep losing. This is when my mom taught me about the powers that can be harnessed when the game of life becomes difficult. Patience and dedication. After learning about these new powers, I decided to try them out. From that point on, every time I encountered a problem, I dealt with it using these powers, and it worked. Using the power of patience, I was able to analyze strategies of how to beat these bosses and complete the side quests more effectively. This allowed me to find the best solution to my problems. Using the power of dedication, I was able to keep trying out different strategies until one of them worked. This was one of the most important levels of my life, because after learning about these powers, I was able to harness them in later levels and use them to my advantage. On level 7, I faced a similar problem to the one I did on level 2. At the end of this level, I had to play with part of my shield damaged once again. In 7th grade, I injured my hand while playing basketball. My left pinky finger of my dominant hand would be out of commission for the next month. However, unlike last time, I now knew how to deal with this problem. I would have to harness the powers of patience and dedication and substitute them in for my damaged shield for the time being. Using these powers, I was able to harness them in battle against bosses and complete side quests as I done before. However, this time, I would be put to the test. I had to deal with the final bosses. I never had to use these powers against opponents of this much strength before. To prepare for these challenging battles, I'll need to practice using them more. Utilizing the power of patience, I went through all of my options and figured out that I was decent at writing with my right hand, so that solved that problem. Through the power of dedication, I practiced using my non-dominant hand ad nauseum and discovered that it was difficult for me to do this for long periods of time. Using this new information, I deduced that I would need to type the longer finals instead of writing them. After days of preparation, I felt like I had it. I was finally able to use these powers to their fullest potential. And then, just like that, the day came. I would be put to the test. All of the final bosses would take up a 3-day stint. So after every day, I would be able to analyze the mistakes I made and how I could do better in the next battles. One by one, I defeated the final bosses. English, then science, then Latin, history, Spanish, and finally math. I used the powers to beat the obstacles that I encountered. I used these powers to beat the obstacles that I encountered during the battle. Harnessing powers is one of the many problem-solving strategies that I learned through moving up levels. Obstacles can be hard to deal with. If you get stuck, it might feel impossible to get out of the hole that you have fallen into. This is when you have to use different problem-solving abilities and powers to get through it, just like I did. Problem-solving is like an obstacle in a video game. If you are not able to get past it on the first try, you have to use the powers of patience and dedication to stay focused and keep trying until you find the right solution. And this, my friends, concludes the journey that I have guided you through today. If there is anything that I ask of you, it is this. Remember that problems in life test your strength. Prove to yourself that you are worthy enough to climb from level to level, and instead of getting frustrated at your obstacles, spend your energy trying to find the solution. Thank you.